Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, November 23rd. My name is Eric Meeks. I'm the broker owner of Remax Desert Properties in Palm Springs and Indian Wells. And today I'm going to walk you through the most recent version of the Desert Housing Report. As you can see on the screen, I've got it here in front of us in a PowerPoint presentation. We're going to walk through it. It's a total of 19 slides. There's maybe a dozen of them that I find highly important. And we're going to just go through them one at a time. It comes out every month. And this one came out a little over a week ago, and I'm going to share it with you today. So as we go through, let's first discuss the areas that it covers. And as you can see, this is I believe it's the 9 cities of the Coachella Valley. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes. Desert Hot Springs to Coachella here in the desert, and it goes over all sorts of housing. It's very interesting. I hope you find it interesting as much as I do. So as we go through here, we go through the summary. It's going to go through all sorts of statistics, but let's just dive right in. Okay, this here is the median price of detached homes. Those are regular single-family homes throughout the communities. This is valley-wide statistics that you have here. And as you can see on the bottom, it starts off with October 2021 on the right-hand side. And then as you go to the left, you go to October '04. So this goes through the last 17 years. And with a low point that happened after the fall of the economy in '07 through '08, then it began, especially by 2011, to rebuild. It had a couple of starts there, but didn't really jump all the way up, and then it began to steadily climb again. Now as we get back into the current times of under COVID, okay, which started right about in here, as you can see, that's in, well, that's October of 19, so maybe we could even go a little bit more, right about October 2020. No, it was before. It was right in about here somewhere. We did have just a little dip. I think it might be right about there. As a matter of fact, yes, as I can follow it, right here, where my cursor is. That was where COVID hit. Okay, and as you can see, we had a slight dip, and nobody knew what was going to happen with the economy. And it has just gone like gangbusters for the last 2 years. And this dip right here, if you see that very minor dip, okay, was roughly a year ago. And that was the summer blip that happened in the inventory in summer of 2020. And in the years past, that would be a significant dip. If you look at every year that we go through, that was a regular trend of what we would see on an annual basis. But in the past year under COVID, it barely happened, and then it jumped up again. Little bigger dip, okay, this summer. Still nothing like in years past. And we're now at a $600,000 average sales price of a single family home in the Coachella Valley. And I will say this is a home of average, actually no, that's a different report. This is an average sales price regardless of square footage. So it's got both very large and very small homes on here, but still an average of $600,000 on the sales price. Now, as we go forward here, attached home prices. So this is primarily condos. There is some duplexes that might be a part of this and some single family homes that are attached, but you can see that especially in the last year, it took off, even more so than what it done, a steeper ascent, I should say, than what it done. This is a 2-year ascent, and with condos, it's closer to about 1 year for what happened with it, and it has been a steady climb. And they did dip a little bit as we went into summer and early fall in 21, down to 370,000. They were up to about 380,000. A very inconsequential dip. Okay, that's not enough to really set any benchmarks on, but it is worthy of note, so we do note it. Now, as we go forward onto the next one, let's see if I can adjust a little bit here for size to help the viewers at home. Okay, this here is a chart that deals with average price points, October price of the average size detached home on top, and then on the bottom, we've got attached. So single family homes on top, condos on the bottom. And if you look, it breaks it down to city by city. So Bermuda Dunes, they do have average size of homes, 2,500, 3,175, and Rancho Mirage. Indian Wells, the biggest at 3,450. Palm Springs, kind of on the high side of the middle at 2175. Desert Hot Springs, substantially smaller at 1600. Palm Desert, roughly the same as Palm Springs at 2200. Because of the building cycles, what was built in Palm Springs in the mid-century homes were actually a much smaller home than what was built in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where there was, again, building booms in the cities. And then as we go down valley and into Cathedral City, 17, 18, 2000, 2500, La Quinta, very big family homes in La Quinta on average. And if you look at the price per square foot, Bermuda Dunes kind of at an average price of 301. Indian Wells running substantially more than Rancho Mirage, but look at Palm Springs. Palm Springs is by far the market leader, okay, with these increases in price per square foot. It is really setting the benchmark. And while I know that we can look at the average prices of homes and the 12-month change, which puts Palm Springs not at the top, but on the higher end, when you consider that a percentage of sales price, it really drives up the average price point in Palm Springs. So it's now almost 1.2 million for the price of an average size home in Palm Springs versus a year ago, 872. I was saying for a long time this past year that the average price of a home in Palm Springs was about 900,000, but that's not the case anymore. We're now over $1 million, almost 1.2 million. Versus if you look at the low of what it was back in 2011, 2012, when there was a ton of inventory and not enough buyers and literally dozens, if not hundreds of foreclosures that are on the market. They were only 323,000 at the time. So in the last 10 years, to go from a little over 300,000 to almost 1.2 million, that's a $900,000 gain. Almost $1 million if you could have bought a home at that time. Now realize the economy was falling apart, people were struggling for work, it was a much different world at that time. But for those who could see it, they rated it as a 263.1% on the sales price. I like it better at saying it's about 900,000. But you can go through it city by city. Palm Desert these days averaging more around 700,000 versus a year ago a little over 5.25. Still a very nice gain. They got it about a third, okay, for how much of a price gain that it's got, okay, over the last year. It's been huge gains. But I'd like to return to this graph up here for just a little bit because I have a lot of people asking me, yeah, but what do you see in the future in that there? And I'll tell you, my personal opinion is I see it stabilizing now. I do not see another dip like what we had here in 07, 06, and through 08 and 09. I don't see that at all. This was a period of very bad loans. This was a lot of people who had multiple mortgages who shouldn't have even had one. And the foreclosure rate on homes at that time was huge. And we didn't have the low inventory housing market that we do today. And that's a significant player. But you combine both those factors of much solid loans and a shortage of homes these days, I believe it's going to continue up. I don't believe it's going to continue at quite the peak that it did over the past year and a half or so. I think we're going to go back to traditional market gains of somewhere between 2 and 5%. And we're not going to see a dip because there is a need for housing. Under COVID, many of the builders of homes quit producing them. And so babies continued to be born, people continued to have families aged and their needs changed. Kids go off to college or move back home, not finding work. Parents mature out into retirement or they want to stay where they're at. But so there is a need for homes. Renters want to become owners, okay, and that's as true as much as ever. But homes weren't being built, even with all those changes. So there is a backlog of needed homes in every community, and I believe that is going to be the driving factor in keeping prices high. Also, we're seeing more and more people returning into the workforce, and jobs are waiting. So for those willing to work who want to get off the unemployment and the COVID relief rolls, they are finding work out there. It's not like they're searching for work and it's not there. So you combine steady increasing incomes with a high demand, low supply, prices are not going down anytime soon, in my opinion. We'll see if it's true. Look at what condominiums have done. Okay, well, home prices have gone up between 130 and 300%, okay, from the low. Condo prices now in some places are reaching over 500%. And if you look over the last year, between 21% on the bottom and 67% on the top. Here we're at homes were 26% and 43%. So condos as a percent of sales price have seen the largest gains over the last 12 months. They've been huge. They're catching up. For a while they lagged behind single family homes, but that's not the case. And detached, attached, and total sales, as you can see here, single family homes are in the blue, attached sales are in the green. So we got detached 3-month rolling average. Okay, so about 560 homes per month for the single family homes are selling, about 250 homes for the condos, overall over 800 homes a month. And they do that on a 3-month average because it adds stability to it. So if you look at October's numbers, which this are, it's actually October, September, and August. Those 3 months combined. And if you look at the month before, which was September, it would have been September, August, and July. So you combine those 3 months. So it's always rolling with that 3-month average. Total sales, selling over 1,000 homes a month still. And that's with very low inventory. When we get to the amount of available homes for sale, you'll see. Over 700 single-family homes, over 300 condos a month, coming to a total of over 1,000 total properties a month of single-family homes and condos. You can look at it by city, 3-month average homes. Palm Springs is leading the way from a year ago against Palm Desert, against La Quinta. The largest cities have the largest amount of inventory, so therefore they have the largest sales. Okay, but if you look, the blue is what's happening right now. That's October 2021. We are seeing a decrease in the amount of sales, but mainly driven by a decrease in inventory. And you'll see that as we go through. And all the cities are seeing that reflected. Only Desert Hot Springs, okay, is really seeing an increase. Coachella, I guess I hear too, if you look at that. But that's because in the past, those cities were not selling homes at the speed of what the more popular or more populous cities of Palm Springs, Palm Desert, La Quinta, and Indio. Those 4 are the most popular and most populous cities in the desert. Desert Hot Springs has a fair quantity of inventory, but there weren't as many people seeking it. But as prices have gone up in these other cities, suddenly Desert Hot Springs has become a very affordable price point where you can still buy a home in the 300,000-ish range. And in Palm Springs, you just saw we're now at an average price of 1.2. I'd have to go back. I think Palm Desert was in the 6s, somewhere around there. I'm sure La Quinta and Indio are both in the 500 plus, maybe even 600 in those. And so therefore, if you can pick up a home between 300,000 and 400,000 in Desert Hot Springs, which gives you a monthly payment and a down payment qualification for just the average person in the world. I mean, a supermarket employee, a tradesperson, a school teacher, a cop beginning his or her career, something like that. You know, just a typical average American, they can afford homes in those neighborhoods. Look at Cathedral City. It's seeing a nice increase, very close to the same amount, 76 homes last year, or this year, to 79 last year. Hardly noticeable, that minuscule dip just being because of available inventory, but also the price point. It's holding very strong on its numbers. People want affordable housing. It's no surprise. Home sales by price range. If you look at this here, we've seen these graphs shift a little more to the higher points because the average price points have increased. Whereas I used to see highest in the 2 to 3s really dwarfing the other categories. If you could look at this from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, this same graph, you'd see 200 and 300,000 being like double what the 400 to 5,000 or the 500 to 6,000. But because the pricing has shifted to being higher on the properties, you're seeing those categories being very strong. But if you'll add them all up between 200 and about 600,000 on there, that's the bulk of the sales going on in the Coachella Valley. Now, as you go to $1 million plus, look at what's happening. huge, strong market in that. That includes not only Palm Springs, but Indian Wells, some of Palm Desert, Rancho Mirage. We're seeing the million plus price point really going strong. As a matter of fact, you can tell by the blue column here, which again is this year, 129 homes over the last 3 months versus 126 homes the year before. So that one has gotten slightly stronger with that. Now, let's go here to the next one. Let's look at inventory. This is what I keep talking about, what everybody keeps talking about. And if we just go back to 5 years ago, there was roughly 4,000 to 5,000 homes for sale at any time during the year. And then we would see that typical summer slump, as I recall, as each one of these dots is a month. So you got November, October, November, December, January, February, March, and then you head into summer, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, a little bit more inventory, November, December, slight dip in January, and then February, March, April. You see how it goes through the cycles on it. But there would run between 4,000 and 5,000 homes a month, and people had lots of choice. They could come in, and having a choice and available inventory allowed the buyers to be more in control so they could compete with the offers on the homes and select what they want. Go through a couple of summer and winter cycles, as you see here, and since about, every year it's dipped a little bit, but if you look at what happened between 2018 and 2019, the inventory did not come back anywhere near as strong. And at that point, as we went through COVID, okay, a lot of inventory didn't come back, and as stuff did trickle back in, it was never enough. And so we see just a constant decline over the quantity of homes available over the last 2 years, till now we have less than 1,000 homes in those 9 cities of the Coachella Valley at any time, where there used to be up to 5,000. So we're working on 20% of the inventory and still holding a very high demand and satisfying as many buyers as we can. And it's making it so that it is a seller's market where you're seeing multiple offers on virtually any home, but definitely any home that's reasonably priced, excellent condition, good location, all of those factors that people like when they purchase homes. Lots of competing bids for them. And that's staying on. Now, I believe we're going to begin to see the return to normal, okay, is going to continue, okay, with the housing market. And so I'm anxious to see in the next couple of months, and you'll see it with me as we watch these slides of the Desert Housing Report month to month, I think we'll see inventory begin to creep up. I don't think it's going to suddenly just take off and go through the ceiling or anything, but I think we're going to begin to see that. I think there's enough buyers that we're going to stay highly competitive for. I think it's going to have to go back a while before we really see it drop off with the competition. But I think we've got that return to normal. People still have some spending money, or at least enough people still have spending money and want to allocate those funds into the housing market. So as we go here to the next months of sales ratios, as you can see, we've dropped from what used to take 6 or 7 months in sales to about a year ago here under COVID. It was 2.5 months for a home to sell. Now there's less than a single month of available inventory. As if nothing else came on the market, everything on the market would sell in 1 month. Continuing forward here, months of sales by price range. The million plus will last, actually, I shouldn't go that. That was last year's. Last year on the million plus homes, it would stay off 5.5 to 6 months. Now it's a month and a half. You got $1 million home, it's going to sell in 6 weeks on there. If you've got a reasonably priced home, and again, let's go between that $200,000 and $600,000 price range. Everything is 1 month or less. Some of them down to 0.4. That's less than 2 weeks. If your home is not getting any offers or any showings and you're in this price range, you're probably overpriced. You went too high. I know it's a seller's market and everybody wants to get as much as they can, but you also got to realize the market still will react in the way that shows you if you're priced too much for its condition. So keep that in mind. If you're over a month and you're in the $400,000 to $500,000, $400,000 to $600,000 range, again, it could affect it. Lots of buyers out there, they still want to be reasonable on their price. And reasonable, I know, adjusts based on market demand. But as you can see here, these stats don't lie. It is what it is with it there. Let's go months of sales by city. Used to be Indian Wells took over 5 months, but the average price point in Indian Wells is well over $1 million. A year ago, the $1 million price range was just starting to pick up. These days, you can see just about every city is basically a month. I mean, Thousand Palms taking 1.9 and Desert Hot Springs 1.2, so almost 2 months on those two cities. But everything else, basically a month or less. If you just look at, and I'll tell you, even 2 months on Thousand Palms and Desert Hot Springs is not a long time because, I mean, if you look at a percentage of price, a $5,000 or $10,000 price swing of where you start on your home will drive you to sell ahead of your competition. So it's important to think about price, talk to your realtor, look at the stats, be reasonable. I still recommend that. We'll get you as much as we can, and more than likely we're going to surprise you. But we do want to attract a buyer still in the market. Days in the market, again, 24 days versus a year ago at 49, and days in the market of detached homes, a little bit longer, but under a month in everywhere else. We're looking more around 3 to 4 weeks for most cities on the detached homes, on the attached homes, about the same, 2 to 4 weeks on those. So I think we're about to get, oh, wait, no, we'll do this. There's 1 or 2 slides left. Price discount from list. I used to tell people, and I have to go back 2 or 3 years to say this. Under COVID, it got a little wonky and it was harder to predict, but over the last, once we were 2 or 3 months into COVID, the trend was evident. Selling between 0 and 1%. And really, this is an average discount from the list price. So if you were overpriced, you may have not gotten any offers. But when you reduce that price to meet the market demand, you suddenly sold at list price. And this is an average. We're finding that roughly 20% of homes are selling over list price. So because of the way the market is reacting right now, do not be afraid to be reasonable on your price. Attract a lot of offers, and then have your pick for how long escrow is, how much down payment they're going to put. Many of them are going to go over asking price. If it's a cash or finance, you're going to find a lot of terms favorable to the seller. Selling it in as-is condition. Much easier to do now than what it was pre-COVID, when it was more of a buyer's market and they were really picking sellers apart on their request for repairs during escrow. And what do we got here? Price discount. Again, when they show these negative price discounts, as you can see here, -1. So when I showed that average, okay, of 0%, that means in some places, Rancho Mirage, Palm Desert, Desert Hot Springs, Cathedral City, Indio, Bermuda Dunes, when it shows that -1, those means it's actually selling over asking price. And many of the attached homes or the condos are doing very much the same thing. And that's about it. So you're seeing it's still a very strong market. As I've said, I believe that we're going to see a return to normal. I think it's going to stay strong, but begin to stabilize. The story is still unfolding right now, and we'll see how that does as we finish out 2021 and go into 2022. My name's Eric Meeks. I hope you enjoyed the November release of the October Desert Housing Report. I'll see you again in about a month. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you for watching The Realtor Guy on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, please like and subscribe to this channel. We release new videos just about every week with helpful tips for real estate agents in the Palm Springs area and around the world. Thanks again for watching. I'm Eric Meeks, The Realtor Guy, signing off.